Most people will spend this entire year reacting to messages, reacting to people, reacting to situations they could have walked away from. And at the end of those 12 months, they'll look back and realize nothing actually changed. Not because they lacked talent, not because life was unfair, but because they never stopped long enough to build something real inside themselves. This video is for the person who's done reacting, who's tired of feeling like the environment controls them instead of the other way around. What I'm laying out today is a 30-day challenge built on 3 disciplines that the Stoics practiced not as philosophy, but as survival. Study, train, stay silent. 3 actions, 30 days. And if you actually execute this, the person you are at the end of it will be unrecognizable compared to who you are right now. Not unrecognizable in the way people mean when they talk about aesthetics or a new wardrobe. Unrecognizable in posture, in the way you carry silence, in the way provocations just don't land the same anymore. Stay with me through this entire video, because the protocol I give you at the end is what separates the people who talk about changing from the people who actually do it. Before we get into the plan, I need you to understand why most people fail before they even start. And it comes down to one pattern that almost nobody notices in themselves. Think about the last time someone said something that got under your skin. Maybe it was a comment at work that felt like a personal attack. Maybe it was a family member who knows exactly which nerve to hit. Maybe it was a message that came in short and cold when you expected something warmer. What did you do? Chances are, you responded. Fast. From that tight, uncomfortable place in your chest where the reaction was already forming before you even finished reading. That moment right there, that automatic response, is the thing this challenge is designed to dismantle. Because here's what nobody tells you. Every time you react without choosing to, you're not just losing an argument or a moment. You're handing someone a manual on how to operate you. And once they have that manual, they use it, repeatedly, without you even noticing. The Stoics understood something about human behavior that most modern self-help completely misses. It's not discipline that makes a person powerful. It's the gap. The space between what happens to you and what you decide to do about it. That gap is where your entire life is actually lived. And right now, for most people, that gap doesn't exist. The stimulus arrives and the reaction follows immediately, like a reflex, like a machine. This 30-day challenge is about building that gap back, one layer at a time, through study, through physical and mental training, and through the deliberate practice of silence. Comment below right now. Tell me which of these 3 feels hardest for you: study, train, or stay silent. I want to know where you're starting from. Let's get into it. The first discipline is study, and not in the way you might think. This isn't about reading more books or consuming more content. This is about developing the ability to see what's actually happening around you in real time before you react to it. Most people move through their days completely blind to the dynamics playing out in front of them. They feel the result of those dynamics, the tension, the resentment, the confusion, but they can't see the cause. Someone at work makes a comment in a meeting and the room shifts slightly. You feel something, but you can't name it. Was that a joke? Was that a dig? Was that a deliberate move to undermine you in front of others? If you can't read it, you respond to the surface. And responding to the surface is exactly what people who want to control you are counting on. Studying here means learning how social dynamics actually operate, how guilt gets manufactured and deployed, how urgency is created artificially to pressure your decisions, how public confrontations are designed not to find truth, but to establish hierarchy, how silence from someone else can be a power move rather than indifference. These are patterns, and once you can see a pattern, it loses most of its power over you. But the most important study, the one that changes everything before anything else does, is studying yourself. specifically your triggers. What pulls you out of yourself fastest? Is it feeling disrespected? Being ignored, watching something unfair happen and feeling like you have to address it immediately? Being compared to someone else? Whatever it is, that trigger is a live wire that anyone paying attention can grab. And some people in your life are paying very close attention. Here's your practice for the first 7 days. At the end of each day, write one single line, not a journal entry, one line. Describe the moment you felt the strongest urge to react. What happened, what you felt in your body, and what you did. That's it. Do this for 7 days, and you will have a map of yourself that most people never build in a lifetime. And a map is power, because you cannot defend a border you cannot see. The second discipline is train, and this one is non-negotiable in the challenge because it's the foundation everything else is built on. Here's something most people never connect. Your emotional state is not separate from your physical state. They are the same system. When your body is weak, your mind is reactive. When your body is strong and regulated, your mind has options. Think about the last time you were truly sleep-deprived, or hadn't moved your body in days, or had been eating badly and sitting in front of screens for hours. Now think about how you handled conflict in that state. How patient were you, really? How much space did you have between the trigger and the reaction? Almost none, because there was nothing in reserve. The tank was empty, and anything that demanded energy from you felt like a threat. Marcus Aurelius trained his body not because he was preparing for war, but because he understood that an undisciplined body produces an undisciplined mind. The training in this challenge is straightforward: 20 to 40 minutes of physical movement 5 times per week. End your shower with colder water, not as a ritual, but as a daily practice of choosing discomfort instead of running from it. Take 3 walks per week with no phone, not to clear your head in some vague way, but to practice directing your own attention without something external pulling it constantly. And then there is the mental training, which is where the real work happens. Seneca wrote about something he called the pause, the deliberate act of inserting a breath, a beat, a moment of stillness between what provokes you and how you respond. He observed that anger, anxiety, the urge to defend yourself, these all have a biological timer. If you don't feed them in the first few seconds, they begin to lose intensity. Not disappear, but weaken. And a weakened impulse is one you can choose to act on or not, rather than one that acts through you. Practice this daily. When something provokes you, before you speak or type or move, pause. 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Feel the impulse without obeying it. That practice, repeated across 30 days, will change how you function under pressure, more than any motivational content ever could. If this is resonating with you, hit the like button. It helps this content reach people who actually need it. The third discipline is stay silent, and this is the one that makes people the most uncomfortable, because silence has been misread for so long as weakness that most people instinctively avoid it. But the Stoics treated silence as one of the most sophisticated tools available to a person who wants to operate with power and clarity. Here's the real dynamic that most people miss. In any conversation where tension exists, the person who speaks more is almost always the person with less control. Think about why. When you over-explain, you're showing that you need the other person to understand you, which means their opinion has power over your internal state. When you justify constantly, you're revealing that you're not fully confident in your own decisions. When you defend yourself immediately, you're signaling that the attack landed, that it found something real to grab onto. Manipulative people, and there are more of them in everyday life than most people want to admit, have learned this intuitively. They know that if they can get you talking, get you explaining, get you emotionally invested in making them understand your position, they can keep you off balance indefinitely. The conversation never ends on your terms. It ends when they decide it ends. Silence removes that dynamic entirely. Not aggressive silence, not cold silence designed to punish, strategic silence, the kind that communicates that you are not available to be pulled into a performance. There are 3 specific forms of silence that will reshape your social environment inside 30 days. The first is the silence of the non-reaction. When someone sends bait, a provocative comment, a passive-aggressive tone, a question designed to make you defend yourself, you don't take it. You acknowledge without engaging. Someone says, "You seem really sensitive lately." You look at them and say, "Maybe so, nothing more. They were expecting a wall to push against. You gave them air." That exchange ends there. The second is the silence of invisible progress. You stop announcing what you're working on, what you're changing, what you're building. There is a specific kind of person who tells everyone around them about the transformation they're about to undergo, and then collapses within 2 weeks under the weight of having to maintain a public narrative. You remove that weight entirely. You say nothing. You just show up different. One day people notice and they can't explain exactly when it happened. The third is the silence of the enforced boundary. You don't explain your limits. You don't justify them. You don't negotiate them. If someone crosses a line in tone or behavior, you say simply, "I won't continue this conversation this way." And then you actually stop. No final word. No last point to make. The boundary isn't a statement. It's an action. Now let's put all of this together into the 7 practices that, applied in sequence, produce the transformation this challenge promises. The first practice, hold your response. When something emotionally charged lands in your direction, a message, a comment, a confrontation, you do not respond immediately. Not because you're playing games, but because a response built from the first wave of emotion almost always costs you more than it gains you. 30 minutes minimum for anything significant. 24 hours for anything that feels like a conflict. Use that time not to rehearse what you'll say, but to let the emotional charge drop, so that when you do respond, you're speaking from somewhere solid. The second practice, replace explanation with stillness. When someone questions your decision or pressures you to justify yourself, you practice giving less than you think you need to. "Not today" works. "I'm not able to make that work" is enough. You are not on trial. You don't need to build a case for your own choices. The more you explain yourself to someone who wasn't genuinely asking, the more you confirm that their approval matters more than your own judgment. The third practice, refuse public confrontations. When someone challenges you in front of others, they are not looking for resolution. They are looking for an audience. Engaging on those terms means playing a game where both outcomes, winning or losing, damage you. The move is always the same. Let's take this somewhere private. Calm. Repeated if necessary, without any change in tone or energy. The fourth practice, become deliberate with your words. Praise given constantly loses all meaning and creates a dependency you'll eventually have to manage. Explanations offered freely become a record that people use against you. Practice economy. Speak when it adds something real. Stay quiet when speaking would only be about managing someone else's perception of you. The fifth practice, train non-reaction under live pressure. This is the center of the challenge. The world will test you. In traffic, in meetings, in the middle of family dinners, in text conversations at 11 at night. Someone interrupts you and keeps talking. You feel the pull to compete for the floor. Instead, pause, hold eye contact, and continue at your own pace when there's space. You're not chasing their energy. You're maintaining your own. That distinction is everything. The sixth practice, reduce your presence around what drains you without making a speech about it. Some relationships function primarily as systems where one person extracts energy and the other provides it. This isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's just a deeply ingrained pattern. But the pattern costs you. Pull back gradually, respond less, share less, observe what shifts. The people who are genuinely connected to you will adapt without drama. The ones who were only connected to the version of you that was always available will show you exactly who they are. The seventh practice: execute the basics without negotiation. The unrecognizable version of yourself is not built in a single breakthrough moment. It accumulates. 20 minutes of reading, 30 minutes of training, 10 minutes of deliberate planning for the next day. These are not dramatic. They are not impressive to talk about. But done every single day for 30 days, they compound into a level of self-respect that changes how you move through every room you walk into. And self-respect is the one thing that makes external validation unnecessary. Subscribe to Stoic Thoughts if you want to keep building this. I make this content specifically for people who are serious about this work. Here is your protocol broken down into time blocks. In the next 24 hours, choose one trigger, the single thing that pulls you out of yourself most reliably. Observe it today like a researcher who has no personal stake in the outcome. Complete one training session. Apply the response delay to anything emotionally charged that comes your way. Read 10 pages of something that develops your thinking. Across the next 7 days, keep your one-line daily reactivity log. Train 5 times. Walk 3 times without your phone. Cut your output in low-value conversations by at least 30%. Apply one real boundary, small, quiet, and firm, without any accompanying explanation. Across the full 30 days, you build predictability for yourself and unpredictability for everyone else. You stop existing in announcements and start existing in actions. You consolidate the 3 habits: training, reading, silence, until they stop feeling like discipline and start feeling like identity. Some people around you will notice and say nothing. Some will say you've changed and mean it as a compliment. Some will say you've changed and mean it as a warning, because the version of you that no longer reacts on command is genuinely threatening to anyone who relied on that reaction. Don't negotiate with that pressure. You're not becoming distant, you're becoming free. And freedom is expensive for whoever was managing you before. Here is the image I want you to carry out of this video. Think of a chess player, not the one who reacts to every move the opponent makes, desperate, defensive, always one step behind, but the one who sits back, reads the board, and thinks 3 moves ahead while everyone else is still processing what just happened. That's what these 30 days build. You stop being the person who responds to every provocation on the board. You become the person who already knows what's coming and chooses silence, chooses stillness, chooses the right moment, because you're playing a different game entirely. One that most people around you don't even realize is being played. Leave a comment with the word silent if you're committing to this 30-day challenge. Just that one word. I want to see who's actually in. And if this video reached you at the right moment, share it with one person who needs to hear this. Not to explain it to them, just send it. Let the content speak. You don't win by being the loudest, you win by being the last one still standing with full control of yourself. Steady, sharp, unrecognizable.